It seems like my wife wants the moon, but she's not willing to put much effort in on her part. At least it seems that way. Maybe that's my assumption. Am I not approaching this in the right way? Does she have crazy entitlement? Is she just expecting all of this with doing nothing? Or am I looking at this wrong? What's going on here? Let's dive into that topic here today on the Cino Show with myself and Cynthia Cruz. Here, Cynthia and I talk about long-term monogamous relationship between a man and a woman and how to grow your own self, your own sense of power and worth in the world for you as a man, and also how to deepen in relationship with a woman throughout your relationship. So we talk about here on the Cino Show. We want to learn how to love and lead, to offer her safety, inspiration, and sexual leadership, and avoid big mistakes that come up for pretty much all of us in long-term relationship. So my wife wants the moon, but with no effort on her part, question mark. How do I check her rampant entitlement? This came up 3 times last week in different scenarios with men, whether you're separated right now and it seems as though she only wants to talk about family time and is happy to, let's say, not work or not work very much. And so you're in limbo land and you're wondering, well, am I being taken advantage of here? If another man said that she expects billions of dollars to manifest out of nothing. So she's a fan of, manifesting and is wondering where the billions of dollars are. Why haven't they shown up yet? Or maybe it's because she sort of wants her cake and eat it too, with going out and saying she wants to find herself, but wanting you to stay, available and not wanting to open herself up. These are all different ways that men have asked. Is she just entitled, or am I looking at this in the completely wrong way? Well, let's start with there's you, there's her, and there's the relationship, the 3 different entities. And so what does entitlement mean? Let's start off with the definition. Entitlement, the fact of having a right to something, the amount to which a person has a right to, or the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. So does she believe she has a right to something, or does she inherently deserve certain privileges or special treatment? That's entitlement. And at some point in your relationship, most likely when you first got together within the first year or 2, you came to a level of equilibrium. We talked about this within other calls as well. So if you're watching this, or if you're wondering, where can I find these other trainings, look back in our YouTube library and we talk about this in particular. So equilibrium, we've come to some place of understanding, or my pros and cons balance out her pros and cons. And maybe you didn't even talk about this at the beginning of relationship. It was just something that was automatic. Maybe you crossed your fingers and hoped that you believed the same things, or that your values were the same. Or maybe you tried to flush this out. Okay, do we believe the same things? And now they've changed over time. But at some point you had this level of equilibrium, maybe even unspoken. We have to ask ourselves, what can we control as a man? So in the Stoic triangle, we teach, what's my virtue? What are my values, my boundaries, my wants? And what can I control? Because we can't control her, and we can't control what her values are, but we can lead together in relationship. So how do we lead from a place of she thinks that she deserves everything, right? And I'm not sure if I'm off base or not. Well, we have to check in with ourselves as a man. So let's start there really quickly. Checking in with ourselves, checking in with our beliefs, our thinking. This is actually called liminal thinking. Liminal means the space in between, or from one transition to another. So are my values growing? Is the space in between us growing? Liminal thinking is a way to create change by understanding, shaping, and reframing beliefs. So what beliefs are maybe stopping you? Well, we have to check in with our own beliefs first and realize that our beliefs are modeled. They're created by our childhood experiences, by our authority figures, by our parents. They create a shared world among those that believe the same things as we do, right? We can be in an echo chamber and our beliefs are only encouraged in that way. Beliefs can create blind spots. Beliefs defend themselves, and beliefs are tied to our identity. So when we're asking someone to change, or asking ourselves to change, there's the obvious, what's above this line. So the results that have been happening, the results that we're getting, and the actions that we're taking, or she's taking, or lack thereof. And underneath the surface, more unconscious, are the beliefs that drive those actions and the experiences that drive those beliefs. So what are the experiences that drive our beliefs? Why do we believe that she feels entitled? Or why do we believe she should be doing XYZ behavior? Or why do we believe that we're doing certain behavior. We have to know those things. And we teach this within our one-on-one coaching, within our group membership as well. So we'll continue forward. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I believe what I believe? I pulled this drawing from a particular article that I linked down here at the bottom on, I was searching liminal thinking and researching this subject. So there's the horizontal dotted line. Above the horizontal dotted line is what's obvious, let's say, or what's open to us. What are we aware of? And underneath the horizontal dotted line, maybe our unconscious or what we're not aware of. There's this diagonal slash that above says the visible. So actions are visible and results are visible. And underneath the horizontal slash, what might be invisible? So our beliefs, her beliefs, our needs, her needs may be invisible to each other. And are we even aware? Are they underneath the dotted line and something that's just part of our unconscious? What do we need? What do we believe that we need? What does she believe that she needs? If you aren't having these kind of conversations with your woman, then there's work to be done. If you have no idea how she sees her identity in the world related to what she believes and what she feels that she needs, there's work to be done. What identities does she see herself as? A couple more slides and I'll go over to Cynthia here. Here's another way to draw this. So the obvious is above the dotted line, what's conscious? What are we seeing happen? And what's within the subconscious or what's unconscious to us that we're bringing out in the world? Beliefs, judgments, theories. What are we giving attention to? Our past experiences. And then it's really impossible to know absolute reality. So what's absolute truth? Well, it's subjective. Well, what's that based off of? Our experiences, our theories of those experiences, how we judge them, our beliefs. And that all plays out in the conscious world above the dotted line. How much is above the dotted line or below the dotted line? I'll save that graphic for another time. So Cynthia, let me go back to, I as a man, I have to know my values, my beliefs, what I can control. Okay. Let's say I've been doing men's work for 2 months, 3 months, 12 months or longer. So I'm aware of what I believe as a man and what I can control. And I'm just exhausted by by the black box of a woman's desires and her wants and her beliefs, especially when she's in the middle of separation or doesn't know what she wants. And so it kind of appears she's maybe taking advantage of the situation. What are some common hidden needs, so to speak, or hidden beliefs that are underneath this diagonal line here that often are not, she's not even aware of necessarily, or what's going on for her? And where does that meet up with the man's, well, how could she just stay in this limbo land? What does she really think that all these billions of dollars are just going to come to her? Let's start there and open up.
Yeah, that one I have to break a little bit and chuckle with. What's really hitting me here is I imagine there are so many things that you currently see or have seen with your wife or the woman you've been with where the need, the expression of almost a declaration of what she gets to have or is supposed to have feels so out of proportion. And I feel like even though we might say feminine energy is at its core more, goes back and forth, there's more shades of gray. I mean, gosh, there's a lot of shades of gray in how she interprets things. But she can get really black and white with, if she deeply believes something that at her core from childhood, from an old hurt that she doesn't deserve, she's not worthy of, a really great defense mechanism is to be the exact opposite and try to demand that from someone else. And so this out of proportion need, desire, expectation is really shining a light on something much darker and deeper, which is the exact opposite of what she's projecting out or demanding that seems really unreasonable because she doesn't really believe it herself. And she's reacting out of fear and grasping and maybe even resentment that someone, masculinity is not giving her something she doesn't even believe in herself she gets to have.
Yeah, thank you for getting us started. Let's open up to you guys. So what is something that she's asking for or has asked for in the past that to you seems like entitlement? Like, how could she even be asking this? Doesn't she know how hard I work, or why could she even think this way? Unmute yourself, coming in.
My wife was more withdrawal than demand, but I guess part of the unreasonable want was for me to mystically understand what's going on in her pain and trauma that I just had no clue of. Like she did this big reveal later that I thought was going to be a big breakthrough. It was a big dud, where she kind of explained the ways that I would behave and ask for things that are perfectly reasonable and part of the couple experience that triggered her into this sort of childhood trauma she had. How would I know that? I mean, I just saw the withdrawal and the pain and everything, and I tried to be as passionate as possible, to make steps forward toward her. We're almost like I'm the boogeyman, like I'm this source of pain, when I had no idea what pain was. I had no idea what the ins and outs of this abuse that she suffered, that was obviously in the abstract known to me, but specifics and how I contributed to her kind of recollection of it is I thought was eventually regarded as totally unreasonable. And then by the time it was all revealed and everything, that okay, now I understand, the door was already shut. I mean, she was already planning her escape hatch. I mean, it's and now it's like there's zero demands. She wants as little to do with me as possible, except for all the things that we interact with for the kids. And that's it's fine. I'm not going to chase. At some point you keep banging your head against the wall and all you get is a headache and a bloody forehead, and that's not that's not something I'm terribly excited about anymore. So I don't know. Again, it wasn't big demands like you better make more money or you better kowtow to my every request. It just didn't seem like that. It was more like, I'm hiding in my room, don't talk to me.
So talk with us about the quiet suffering. And maybe to a man it feels like she's just shutting down, or she's not helping, she's not putting in effort. So maybe they're seeing entitlement that way.
Yeah.
Okay. She's not putting in effort. Doesn't she see that we need to exchange value here in the relationship? That's what a man might think, a logical brain. So talk with us about, how about the fear of opening past trauma to her man, without going down the slippery slope of this being a trauma discussion, but her fears of opening that, and this going around that maybe her beliefs and judgments of herself are that she's broken, that she's the problem, that he can't help, that even though he tries to help, he's doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. Talk with us about that. Maybe around her own, let's say, self-awareness and self-isolation.
Yeah, I mean, God, the isolation, the shutdown is so, I mean, it's like, how are you supposed to interact with that? How are you supposed to reach out and hold space with that? And what I can offer is what's a deeper why is probably, let's say there's a incredible spectrum of what can feel really traumatizing to a young person, a young woman. And there's the spectrum of, like, I know, what alluded to his wife that went through. And then there's like very minor hurts to, a feminine, more sensitive being. And at a time when maybe that first happened, or even in family system, she might have tried to open in the moment or didn't even know how to shut down around that yet. And someone else, out of their fear or misunderstanding, kind of shut that down. And so she's reliving that story of, I can't trust anyone, I can't open to anyone. I understand that that's just the why, and it's not moving the ball forward. But I think a lot of resentment then builds in the feminine. Why is no one saving me from this pain? And there's a little bit among women who are like, oh, well, our way of communicating with each other is we love each other by really kind of trying to find out what's the hidden story beneath you, and be perceptive of that. Or, a woman friend might be, oh, I'm fine. And she'd be like, oh, no, but really, how are you? And that's kind of this titter tatter back and forth. And so just the fact that, in the masculine, which has so much eye on the big picture, that's really welcoming, like, bring the value of your emotion to me on the table so I know what we're working with. There's a lot of misunderstanding. And then I think women do get really entitled with why aren't you acting more like a feminine being and excavating me? Because somehow that will prove to me my worth and my okayness and my safety, instead of really showing up and recognizing how you're offering true safety, real safety, what she's really craving and needing.
And we'll certainly talk more on this call about things to try, things to say of where you are. But I want to hear more from you men about a story, or what's this reminding you of? When was she entitled? When did you think that she was entitled?
She's I wouldn't use the word entitled as a word to characterize my wife. She's a hard worker all around the family, and I don't really have this particular issue, except in the sense that when it comes to doing the work like what we're doing here with self improvement, and I'm building my 2.0 self, and I don't really. She has like no interest in like learning anything. Like I try to like feed her a couple of podcasts or something like that, or things that I think are interesting, and it's important to me. I would love to have her watch those things, listen to them, and then have a conversation, right? So it's like this. I'm I feel like I'm pulling everything in the direction. So I guess that's sort of an entitlement mentality as far as fixing the relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. As if everything's your responsibility. She shouldn't have to do anything necessarily.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So
So let me ask, for instance, there's four pieces to this graphic. At the top are actions, obvious, visible actions. Then results, visible results that we're getting. Then there's needs that can be potentially concealed or even hidden from our own self, right? And then there's what we believe that may be invisible to you that she may be aware of. Okay, so let's start with beliefs. So she has beliefs that she's aware of, and she has some that she's not. But let's ask her about the beliefs of shared relationship, of connection, intimacy, time together, future vision. Our staircase of intimacy, right, is future vision, emotional connection, and physical connection. Three very different things. So when you talk with your wife and you talk about what she believes that life can look like, or she wants life to look like, or what she believes relationship can look like, what does she say? What does she talk about?
yeah, I don't know if I've gotten that deep with her. I mean, we've had a lot of momentum lately, but it's not about like visions of the future. So, I mean, I definitely have mine, and I'm slowly trying to, lean her that way. But I haven't prompted her to say, have this very deep conversation about where we're going, and what she thinks things should look like. So maybe I need to do that.
Well, sure. So let me rephrase the question. If I were just asking you what you wanted to have for lunch today, you may not care, but you'd probably have some kind of opinion about it. And you'd
Yeah.
have a reason for that opinion. Like, all right, I'm going to have these vegetables on my lunch because it's good for me. And this is why I believe that those things are good for me. If you had a conversation like that, I don't mean it to be this built up, okay, now we're going to solve world hunger pressure on the conversation for her. But if you said, hey, I'm looking out into 2024, summertime, 2024, I'm thinking of going to the beach or going to the mountains. What do those feel like to you, sweetheart? Something
Yeah.
like that, where it's very easy to talk about. I don't mean this being
Yeah. No, we can. Yeah, we're having practical discussions like that about things to do and like all that kind of fun jazz. But like when it gets into like the I guess the hard work of knowing yourself, and just studying the work that we're doing here, and it just seems like that deeper level of conversation isn't happening, or is she really interested in it? So we could talk all we want about vacations, that's fine and dandy, but like that's not really taking. I don't know, that's not the next steps that I'm hoping to get to. We'll get to those vacations, no doubt about it, but
Sure. What's an example of something that you would hope she'd be able to talk about more advanced, more deep, like you're saying?
like I've been, for instance, I've been reading the book by Alison Armstrong, right? The Understanding Women. That stuff's fascinating to me. I mean, I would think that would be interesting to her too, right? To understand yourself, and just to even have a casual conversation about that. Um, but she's just not really interested in it.
Okay, and so I'm narrowing down what you've actually asked her because I still haven't. So, for instance, hey, I'm reading this book, and they're talking about berry markers, how a woman is
Right,
going to
right.
tell you the Meadow report, right? From Understanding Women, they were going to tell you because of hunters and gatherers and back in
Yep, yep.
caveman days. What do you think about that? And you tell her about it. What do you think about that? You
Yeah,
ask her.
yeah. So I've done that, and then we'll spend about maybe 5 minutes talking about that subject, and then it's just like, okay, on to the next thing. Let's talk about the kids again.
Mm.
Sure.
It's
What
like,
are
wait
you
a minute, don't you
hoping?
want to read the book? Aren't you
Oh, so
interested
you're hoping that
in
she'll like
hearing?
read the whole book with you and do
Yeah,
jumping
why
jacks?
not? Or yeah, or do something.
A PowerPoint presentation.
Go, let's
Yeah.
just
So,
yeah.
so again, hoping she does what? Read the book.
I don't know. Yeah, start learning about herself more. You know,
Okay. So I
read
pushed you.
anything.
Right.
Read
Right.
anything.
Well, so I'm going to play her side of the table for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
You really haven't told me at all what you're hoping that she does. It's like this generalization that I hope she reads the book. I hope she wants to improve herself. Yeah, we'll talk about vacations. That's easy. But hey, I brought this thing up and we talked for 5 minutes about Alison Armstrong stuff. I think that's maybe pretty good. I don't know. There's many men that would kill for her to have a 5 minute
Mm.
conversation. And then I ask you what you want, you're like, well, I don't really know. And that's an issue, right? So let's give some things to try. What might you say from a woman's point of view of what he can ask or what she might be considering? Hey, let's just go back to talking about kids.
Mm.
What else might be the rub there for her, would you say?
Yeah, and can really resonate with your desire to have partnership with someone who's like, oh, I've read this book, and yeah, I was just reading chapter 5. It gives like a common language to talk about things that are not always easy to talk about.
Mm.
The thing that there's two things that hit me. One is that I think women, some of their entitlement is they expect men to grow, learn, and be the same as them. So I've been on a side where a lot of women are like, why doesn't he want to read this book? Why doesn't he want to go to this meditation class with me and, smell burning sage? And I think on the other side, sometimes women, your wife might learn and grow in a way that's very mysterious, that it may not be very what you can see, but she is inspired by what you're doing. And then the other side of it is sometimes women don't even know how much shame they carry around just being a woman, whether parts of it seem silly or weak. I remember going into college, I had a really big aversion to taking women's studies classes because I had been so taught that I didn't even want to touch that part of myself. And so her opening just a little bit to embrace more of an evolutionary side of her brain, and then goes back to something that's much more comfortable and doesn't have her touch into some deeper stories or beliefs, is, I would say, probably part of her growth cycle, and that she can keep going deeper with you. She just probably has a lot of inner mountains around that she hasn't even really known, but you are so generously giving her opportunities to move through and feel with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep, that makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah, inner mountains for sure. Thank you. No, I can sense it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for opening this up. It's a great question. So let's take it one more step there. I talk with men all the time about knowing the way she sees herself, the identity that she sees of herself in the world. How does she want to impact the world? How does she want to better the world in some way? And most guys don't know. It's hard enough for us to answer that question year to year, month to month.
Yeah.
And most women don't talk about that. What's a way a man can bring up that conversation without it being invasive, without it seeming try hard or, that he scripted it from a book, but how she sees herself being impactful in the world is such an important part of her identity. So we're talking about these beliefs, the beliefs that she has of herself and relationships, the judgments that she puts on herself or that have been passed down to her. A part of that is how she's supposed to be in the world as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems as though the way she's supposed to be take up a ton of attention and time and effort. And there's so little left maybe for the relationship. So what's a question for a man to understand how she wants to be seen in the world, how she wants to be honored in the world?
Yeah, well, the idea of a common language came up, and even just listening to when she's talking about the kids and all the things that she does that are external, what words does she use? Does she talk about giving, needing, making sure something happens? Because those are her actually recognizing how she moves herself out in the world, how she sees herself. I'm someone who gives, I'm someone who makes happen. And so using one of those words to ask her more about, well, it might be a little too deep for her to say, hey, how do you feel when you get to give in this way to our kids? She might need first a warm up of you just recognizing, seeing her for what she makes happen, and even hooking into that a little new insight. Hey, when you make this happen with the kids, I bet they feel incredibly safe or seen or
Yeah.
happy.
I did that the other day. Actually, she prepared a whole prayer for the kids before school started, and she did a wonderful job and read it out. And I complimented her on that, that she did that, and tried to pull more out of her. But there's, when you say mountains, I mean huge mountains underneath there. She wrote this whole thing out, but when she went to speak it to the kids, like she really just broke down. She can't keep her emotions, like, and she could barely get the words out. Like she was just in tears. I mean, these are good words and encouraging words, but like it was very difficult for her to get through that. I mean, I would have just rattled it off and said, here's my prayer. Here you guys go. You're
Yeah.
off. Have a good, school year, whatever. But I don't know. There's something underneath there.
Well, there is her passion just beneath the surface. And I saw your post on Facebook, and I was like, I've been in that place where you're sitting in church, and as a woman, you just can't hold back the tears because there's something that's coming out. And I, on her own, trying to logic her way into, oh, this is my passion coming out, doesn't work. It's you recognizing the beauty of, I could feel, even when the tears were blocking your words, I could feel your love helps her to see herself. And even when she shares something with you, even just pausing and maybe an extra beat before you respond, letting it sink in to you, might also help her feel seen and heard.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Good tips.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Keep bringing scenarios here. These are the most fun for us to talk about and the most specific for you and for any other man. Good stuff. Thanks. See, I put into the chat, we both work, living together but estranged, and all the bills are paid from my bank account, not hers. Not brought it up with her yet, but if she wants to live separate lives, her decision, then we should be paying 50-50. I expect a shit show when I bring this up. Any suggestions on how to approach this with her? I don't think it's even on her radar. So let's see. Estranged, bills are paid. So this is where you're in limbo, and she seems to be stringing things along, or at least it seems like that. She doesn't want any more connection with you intimately. And yet you're not splitting bills. All the bills are coming out of your particular account. Expecting a shit show. Any suggestions on how I approach this? Well, there's a book entitled Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And Chris Voss is a retired FBI hostage negotiator. And so not only is it a fun book, a fun read, it has this concept I'm going to share with you right now, which is asking what questions or how questions. Starting a sentence or a question with what or how. If you start a sentence with why, it's immediately putting the other person much more on the defensive. You're trying to pin them down. It's like, give me a logical reason, defend yourself. But if you asked a how question, hey, if we were separated like this for the next year or 2 years, you might say to her, how will we handle our finances? How would that shift our finances the way we're paying them right now? Or what do you see is going to change for our finances coming up here over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, if we were to stay in this spot? Yeah. So with that said, expecting a shit show. So what are you seeing here that we talk about quite often, Cynthia, that a man might not consider, that I'm not immediately considering? Okay, maybe she's been stay-at-home mom, and so what? She's given a lot of time to the family, and so she hasn't been able to build any other reason or excuse that she's going to come up with here. But what's the most important? What else would you aim at here for this man?
Yeah, I mean, let's say there's the situation where she's been staying at home and she's been entitled to the funds that you've brought in, and now suddenly that's shifting. There's such a wave that goes through her of loss of comfort, loss of ease, and it kind of puts her back into her masculine to be in that 50-50, even though that's what should happen. And so what you're going to experience, this shit show, is a mosh of feminine emotion coming up against like her more masculine rigidity. And it's kind of like she needs to grow up through the situation. But it's scary for her to lose that safety net that she relied on and just assume that she got to have. And I do see that in women a lot, that there's the assumption that even if they decide that they don't want to be in a relationship or they want separation, that they just get to keep having the banquet of your incredible masculinity, the safety of financialness that you provide. And it's a really big dash of water for her to experience that doesn't just get to happen just because she's a woman, which is painful, but painful for everyone.
That's well said. So would you say calling it out, hey, this can be a scary conversation for both of us that we need to have?
Yeah, and even calling out, like, I would imagine this could be really frustrating for you or make you really angry. And I totally get that. And this is what needs to happen. And she may still like throw the whole kitchen sink at you. But it's unweaving this belief that she just gets to have whatever pieces of the relationship she wants and disregard the rest.
Yeah, what she believes. So if we go back to entitlement, okay, so entitlement is the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. So part of my question for a man when he brings this up to me is, have you been playing into that belief that she has? And so we just need to own that piece of it. Has she had this belief from since the beginning that you as a man should make billions of dollars a year, or that she should not have to work for the rest of her life, no matter how old the kids are or how much demand is there? Have you inadvertently, accidentally, unknowingly been playing into that belief? So if we go back to this model here, so if the 3 stick figures above, if these are your family, one of them's you, one of them's your wife, and maybe another is a child or someone else in your life, extended family maybe. And she has a strong belief and she's been playing this out all along, but you have not had really much belief in what the family structure should be like, or the finances, or you kind of crossed your fingers, or you were on autopilot just trying to make more money, get the next promotion, make more and more money. And she's had this pervasive, let's say, belief that you as a nice guy have left unchecked. You haven't challenged her wanting to buy a new car every 3 years. You haven't built a budget and challenged both of you to sit down and track your expenses. And so this belief has been going for years and has the momentum for years. So what does it feel like for a woman when she feels like this momentum of values has been going and all of a sudden the man says, uh-oh, like, well, this needs to change? What immediately is she going to feel within the relationship dynamic there?
That the game plan has shifted, and that it will just be like a loss of that dynamic that she came to depend on. And it can feel like she can get a lot of spite and resentment towards you, as if you're letting her down, as if you're changing the game. And that's a really big different energy than all along the game being more like played on the table, that there's awareness and authenticity, and that she can bring her femininity to the table as you talk about finances and structure and what keeps your family as a whole safe and progressing.
So that would be something to acknowledge as well. Hey, this maybe feels like a change of game plan, to call that out. And the chat here, big opportunity to face the shit show with compassion and stay true to your values and sense of fairness. Opportunity for yourself that is not for points or to convince her to stay. Yeah, it's because it's what you believe, right? And a quote here, I'm sorry your sense of entitlement overshadows your perception of reality. Yeah, you can think that in here. That's the quiet thoughts, right? It's the quiet voices. Yeah. I'm sorry that you hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that your feelings are hurt. Instead of, right, I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. Yeah, I found within myself, if I've made assumptions and it's the longer the amount of time has gone on without me bringing it up in relationship, the more it's actually, I'm negating my responsibility. I'm abdicating my leadership. I'm avoiding a conversation that really needs to be had. And the way you know that you're going too far is when you're getting angry or starting to grow resentment about it, right? Anger is a precursor to some other type of boundary, upholding a boundary with violence, really. And we start to feel desperate. So the farther and farther and farther we go past a boundary, we feel like anger, desperation, or collapse. And so if you're feeling like this, I'm just constantly growing resentment, post in the forum, bring the questions here to us. This is a conversation that you want to have with your woman, regardless of how it comes out, regardless of the outcomes, is that this is for your opportunity to speak your values. Cynthia, any last words on that?
You know, that I keep calling up again, this like idea of shared language, and even naming something as, hey, I'm changing the game here. I'm changing the pieces. I know this is what's happening, and allowing where that falls at least gives it a name. And sometimes the feminine storm, even though in the moment might totally rage and she throws her hand under the Monopoly board and throws it off the table, she will remember your very perceptive, kind ability to call it out. Like, the game, here's a change. And that can be an anchor for her. And that can be a way that, even though she says she doesn't, she has a more solid sense of trust. She has, even though she says she doesn't respect you more, she has some respect because of your graciousness, your energy to see the big picture, to have a name for it, to call it out. So it's not this great, scary unknown to the feminine emotional experience.
Yeah, and you anchor yourself in your value. Of course, you care about your woman, you care about your wife deeply, of course, but that can't modify how you act. That you have to take a step forward as the man that you know you are and that you want to be. And that's what this work is. What have been my experiences? What are my chosen beliefs? Making those conscious. And then what are the actions I want to take to lead to the results that I now envision, these new results that I now envision. If you guys have questions about this, post in the forum, reach out to us directly, greatmenmovemountains.com. If you want help with, all right, how do I flesh out my own beliefs? Or What can I exactly say in this spot with my wife here so she can feel more understood? Or is this a spot that I just need to put my foot down? Men ask us those questions all the time. Every time you face the shit show and keep your heart open and calmly assert yourself, you gain, like reps at the gym. Mm. Embrace it as personal gain, not where your values will have consequentially for her. Yeah, it's not about the outcome. It's the man that you are on the journey along the way with us here. Appreciate you guys. See you next time. Thanks, Cynthia. Bye, guys.